Grace and peace to you, managers of what God has given. This parable bends our minds a bit. Is Jesus commending dishonesty? Why would Jesus, of all the examples he could use, why wouldn't he use a positive example of someone managing things well without being dishonest? Why bring in this negative factor? First, I want you to examine the dishonest manager. It's not only that he's dishonest, he's also a bit prideful. You hear that in his thought process. I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm too prideful to beg. So what's he got to do? He's got to set himself up that once he loses this position, he's not going to work again. He's just going to freeload off other people. That's what he's got to figure out how to do. So not only is he dishonest, he's a bit prideful, lazy, whatever you want to say. So it's not only that he's dishonest, he's got other negative traits as well. And so what is this thing that Jesus does want us to latch on? The master doesn't commend him for his dishonesty, he commends him for his shrewdness. Sometimes I think we hear the word shrewd and we paint that negatively. Shrewdness is not necessarily negative. It's about being cunning. It's about being wise. It's about maybe being scrappy is maybe a word we would use. There's nothing wrong if you're playing basketball and someone says you're being scrappy. You're doing everything you can to try and win. If you're not that skilled, at least you can give it your all. And so here's this man giving his all to this situation. So the master, in other words, is he happy that he lost even more? No, he's not happy about that. But what is he saying about the manager? He's saying, in other words, well played. Well played. You were about to lose basically all your resources, and now you figured out a way to live without any. Well played. And so then Jesus follows up the end of the parable and he says, for the children of this world, talking about unbelievers, are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the children of the light are. Talking about believers. So what is Jesus saying? He's saying unbelievers are better at seeing what is at their disposal and using it. That's what he's saying. So now what is Jesus doing? Why does he use this negative example? It's not to highlight dishonesty and to get us to think, oh, well, we should try every possible form of tax evasion, even if it's a little shady. No, that's not what Jesus is doing at all. He's not trying to get us to be dishonest. He's trying to get us to see, look at this dishonest person. You've got something you can learn from him. And so there's the story, and you get to see this person figure out how to use what's at his disposal. And so now Jesus says, do you guys see? You've got these fleeting things, like Solomon talked about. Your wealth you can't take with you. It's going to be one day that your position, your wealth, it's all going to go away. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter what you do, it's going to be taken away. So why don't you use it right now in as shrewd, as crafty, as wise a way as you can now? So then you have to think, well, how can I use my wealth, this fleeting thing, and get a return on investment? And so what you end up going through as you go through the thought process is if you use your fleeting wealth, it's not just your wealth, it's your position, it's your energy, it's your influence. If you use it just to get different things that are fleeting, Well, you haven't gained anything. You haven't got any return on investment. You've just traded fleeting things for fleeting things. So then what does Jesus turn us to? What did the man turn to? He turned to people. You see, it's people that you can invest in. It's people that are going to live eternally, whether they're in hell or in heaven. There's this resurrection from the dead. So whenever you invest in a person, you're investing in something that's eternal. And so here is this man. Now he's an unbeliever. He just wants to get welcomed for this life. And we hear Jesus say, I tell you, make friends for yourselves with unrighteous mammon, worldly wealth, so that when it runs out, they will welcome you into the eternal dwellings. Why does Jesus call it unrighteous mammon? Why doesn't he just call it worldly wealth like our previous translation? He's highlighting the fact that your wealth doesn't make you righteous. So he's highlighting the fact this thing in and of itself is not righteousness. See it for what it is. And so then he points you, make friends so that you're welcomed into eternal dwellings. Don't be fake about it. Don't just throw your money around so that people like you. But those people that you care about, what do you inevitably do? You invest time, energy, you use your influence because you want them to grow up in a good way, in a right way. You want to curb the bad things within them. And you definitely use your worldly wealth on them. Think of those people that mean a lot to you. Did they necessarily spend a ton of money on you? Maybe they did. Maybe they bought you a car or something. I think more than the amount of money is the fact that they worked with you, the fact that they would influence you, the fact that they would spend their time and energy on you. I think of my grandma. Grandma's not doing well right now. And so you think of the investments over the years. They weren't really all that big. Got a $2 bill because she worked at the bank, and so she would save all the $2 bills that came in. She'd give us all $2 bills. I still have like 10, 20 at home. It's a little investment. And then every birthday in November, she would sew me a pillowcase. A pillowcase. When I was young, I was kind of hoping for more than a pillowcase. You know, I guess I could take it trick-or-treating with me or something, but now here I am. Grandma's lost her mind. She's now lost her appetite to eat. But she invested in me. And now there's these little things I have, fruit of her investment in me. But what was the biggest thing? The biggest thing to her was she wanted me to be welcomed into eternal dwellings. That was always the conversation at Thanksgiving. What blessing? What are you thankful for? She invested. And so now here is God asking you, what are you going to invest in? He catches us up and he says this, and the person who is unrighteous with very little is also unrighteous with much. So if you have not been faithful with unrighteous mammon, who will entrust you with what is really valuable? There's this thing that I think sometimes we don't fully get. I think, do you own anything? Do you own your car? Do you own your house? Do you own your pets? Jesus says no. You're only managing them. Everything you have, you are simply managing. So then Jesus says, well, if you can't even manage the worldly wealth, this fleeting thing, why would I give you anything more precious than that? He says this, if you've not been faithful with what belongs to someone else, who will give you something to be your own? There's Jesus putting the nail. You don't own anything. Nothing you own is yours. And so he's saying, manage it, not for yourself, but for God. And so then we get to this turning point where there's the realization that if we're managing money for ourselves and not for the one who gave it and for his eternal purposes, money's become our master. Money's become our God. So then we ask the question, well, if Jesus would come in and bring us to account, what would he find in the ledger? What would he find in our books? How many Hot Wheels cars can you buy before it becomes ridiculous? We counted over 200. There's always going to be another Hot Wheels car. There's always going to be a different paint color. There's always going to be one that might be faster than the one we've got right now. At what point do I say enough? I'm turning my children's hearts to be of this world and to get them all when they're all going to go away. So then there's the thing in your life. How many pairs of shoes can you buy? When I was moving out of college, there were 24 pairs of shoes lined up in the hallway. And my roommates couldn't believe it. Called me a woman. You see where my heart had been led? My heart had been led to think life was about having the coolest shoes. And I had them. Some of them I still have, but I never wear them. But I'm going to keep them. Why? Why am I going to keep them? Why wouldn't I just sell them and use the money for something else? Because there's that part in me that thinks they will still get me something precious someday. Having a newborn really pushes this to the forefront, and you say to yourself, why? Why have another kid? Why have another child? Think if Monica and I didn't have any children, think what kind of car we'd be driving. I'll tell you right now, it would not be a minivan. Think about the vacations we would have gone on. Think about all the things I would be getting to right now. Why have another child? You see, if I let money be my master, I can all but guarantee I will get to the things I want to get to. I'll be able to get the AMC Javelin. I'll be able to get the 3D printer and spend all this time printing all these cool things. I'll be able to go to the mountains for some remote trout fishing. I can almost guarantee it if I let money be my master. Why have another child? Before we answer that, why let God be your master instead of money? If God's my master, am I going to get those things? Probably not all of them. I can almost guarantee that. It's because God said, the manager said, come in. How much do you owe the master? And we said, more than 1,000 lifetimes. He said, quick, sit down. He didn't just say write 0. He definitely zeroed out our account, but then he gives us this blank check, this currency that we cannot comprehend. The righteousness of God is credited to our account. Because he knows no matter how much work we do, we're not going to make it. We're not going to be able to leech off of people to righteousness. All our begging, all our digging, couldn't make it. You see, we've got the perfect manager. You see how he managed perfectly? He took all of his assets, his influence, his position, and he came, and what did he use it to do? To serve himself? To get all these possessions for himself? No. To serve people. To make sure they would be welcomed into eternal dwellings. And how much of himself did he give? 10%? He gave all of himself so that he could call the debtors in. He could cancel all the debt and put righteousness in its place. You see, Jesus is being the perfect manager. And so then, out of his perfect management, then he comes and he calls to us. And so then when questions go through your head, like, why have another child? When it means probably saying no to all these other things, you would say, because, my goodness, I want to give people what I've been given. I want to bring people into eternal dwellings, and that's what you get to do with all of your children, with your grandchildren, with all your friends. You get to invest in them. You get to manage all of your resources to push the people in your life towards something that is not fleeting. The little things you give them, the pillowcases, the $2 bills of this world, to push them towards eternal dwellings. Because it's not really about the pillowcase, it's not really about the $2. It's about showing them that you care, so that when you can have an eternal conversation, they'll listen. This all starts out addressed to the disciples, and then it ends with that line, you cannot serve both God and money. But guess who was listening? Pharisees. And they were sneering at Jesus. Why were they sneering? This could not possibly be talking about them. Why not? They gave a good offering. You see, the Pharisees gave 10% of everything. They gave 10% of their net worth, not just of their income. So there they are in the spice cabinet, and they've got the paprika, they've got the garlic powder, they're measuring out 10% of that. 10% of their car's value. 10% of the harvest they got. 10% of the deer they shot. 10%, everything. Imagine if you went through everything you had that meticulously, found out your true net worth, and gave 10% of that to church every year. You might put yourself in that same position as the Pharisees and say, money's not my master. These words of Jesus aren't for me. And Jesus responds and says, you who justify yourselves A lot of you here give a really good offering. I don't look through the books. I don't know what you give. But I know some of you give a really good offering. What's the truth of the matter? Money sneaks up on all of us. On any given day, it is our master. Happens to me. What would break us free from that? What would keep us from sneering and saying, no, that could never happen to me, that won't happen to me. Look at how generous I am. It would be this master. This master who would send a manager who would be so shrewd and figure out a way to save everyone, even those who at times act like Pharisees. Dear believer, you cannot serve both God and money. Thank God for the God we have who would call us back to himself, who would call us out of his slavery to money, back to serve him. This one who we don't owe a debt to anymore. This one who's made us free. Free to use all we have to win people for eternal dwellings. Amen.